Texas, 1939. A little boy sits outside a bank shining shoes. His name is Bernard Garrett. He is 9 years old and he already knows exactly what he wants to be. His father tells him gently that it's impossible. The rules here are not subtle. They are written into every door, every counter, every bank window with its glass partition. Bernard listens to his father. Then he looks back at the bank and keeps writing in his notebook. Some people hear the word impossible and stop. Bernard hears it and starts planning. 15 years later, he loads his family into a car and drives to Los Angeles. California is not perfect, but it is not Texas. The discrimination here is quieter, less violent, more insidious, dressed up in polite refusals and bureaucratic brick walls rather than explicit signs. Bernard sees opportunity in the gap. The black community in LA is overcrowded. The white neighborhoods have empty houses going to waste. There is a market sitting right there in the open that nobody is serving. He intends to serve it. He finds a rundown apartment building with weeds climbing the front steps. Every other investor would walk past it. Bernard sees the location, right on the edge of the black community, and walks straight to the owner. His name is Patrick Barker, an Irish immigrant. Bernard makes him a proposition. "Sell me the building now," he says, "for less than the asking price, and I'll pay you the remainder once I've rented out all the rooms." Barker is intrigued, but he won't take the risk on a stranger's word. Bernard leaves, then spots a calendar on Barker's wall, a gift from a local bank manager. A thought forms. He walks directly to that bank and waits outside for hours until the manager appears. He stops him on the street and pitches a loan. The manager refuses without a second thought. That night, Barker calls. "Did you use my name to get a loan?" Bernard apologizes. Barker pauses, then tells him something unexpected. He isn't angry. He respects a man who won't quit until the goal is reached. He guarantees the loan himself. Bernard gets the money. He buys the building. The existing tenants, all white, are not pleased. An elderly woman calls the police when she sees a black man at the door of what she considers her building. Bernard is ready. He has carried a copy of the title deed with him specifically because he knew this moment was coming. He hands it to the officers without raising his voice. They leave. The woman leaves. Within weeks, every unit is filled with black tenants who finally have somewhere decent to live. Barker is impressed enough to offer a partnership. They will buy and flip buildings together across the city. Barker as the visible face, Bernard doing everything behind it. They split the revenue. It works beautifully. They make serious money. Bernard moves his family from a cramped utility room into a mansion. He's building the life he wrote about in that notebook outside the bank in Texas. Then Barker dies, and everything falls apart overnight. His widow wants nothing to do with Bernard. She offers to buy out his share at a fraction of its actual value, knowing full well that in 1950s America, a black man taking a white widow to court over a business dispute is not a fight that ends well regardless of the facts. Bernard goes to the bank manager who knew about the partnership and asks him to testify. The manager, now aligned with the widow, refuses to see him. Bernard stands in the lobby of that bank and looks around. 4 banks in one building. Every single one of them has closed its doors to him. Not because he lacks the intelligence or the resources, because of the color of his skin. And then slowly, the way his best ideas always arrive, a thought takes shape. If I own the building, none of them can close the door on me again. He takes the idea to Joe Morris. Joe is a sharp, boisterous club owner in LA who has quietly accumulated significant wealth while navigating the same system that blocks Bernard at every turn. When Bernard first approaches him through Eunice, his wife, Joe is skeptical, borderline dismissive. He's learned to distrust ambition that runs too far ahead of what is actually possible. But Bernard lays out the logic precisely. Own the building and the banks inside it will have to do business with you. They will give you loans. They will share market intelligence. Every door that was locked swings open the moment you own the floor it stands on. Joe listens. Joe thinks. Joe says yes. There is still one problem. 2 black men cannot walk into a negotiation and buy a building in downtown Los Angeles. The system will not allow it. They need a white face at the table. They find Matt Steiner, a working-class man who has been helping with renovations, honest, ambitious, and hungry to be more than he currently is. Bernard and Joe spend weeks turning him into something he was never born to be. They teach him golf, high-class manners, the mathematics of real estate, how to walk into a room full of wealthy men and make them believe he belongs there. Matt is a natural. Before the key negotiation, Bernard spends nights counting the lit windows in the building after dark, Calculating vacancy rates, revenue per unit, operational costs, he prepares every number that could possibly come up and drills Matt until it is all memorized cold. When Matt sits across from the building's owner, he's one step ahead of every figure the man throws at him. The owner's accountant is dumbfounded. They believe they're sitting across from a mathematical genius. Bernard and Joe buy the building, originally priced at over $2.4 million, for $1.56 million. From that day forward, every bank president in the building personally greets Bernard when he walks through the door. The manager, who once refused to see him, stares in disbelief. Bernard and Joe go on to acquire over 100 properties across Los Angeles. They break the racial zoning lines that have kept black families out of white neighborhoods for decades. Families move into streets that were never meant to have them. An entire city begins to quietly shift. Then comes 1963. Bernard takes his family back to Willis, Texas to visit his father. His father looks at him over the dinner table and says he is proud. It is the thing Bernard has been working toward since he was 9 years old, writing in a notebook outside a bank. The next morning, he walks through town with his son. They end up in front of the same bank, and there is a young boy shining shoes outside it like Bernard once did. Bernard watches him, and then he notices something that stops him cold. The boy will only shine the shoes of white customers. He has already learned, already accepted the limits, already started building his world around the walls instead of against them. Something shifts in Bernard that day. He goes home and tells Joe they need to buy the Mainland Bank in Willis. Joe tells him he's out of his mind. Texas is not Los Angeles. The racism here is not quiet and bureaucratic. It is loud and proud and backed by every institution in the state. Bernard tells him exactly why it has to be done. Without access to bank loans, black families in Willis cannot buy homes, cannot start businesses, can't build anything. The bank is not just a financial institution. It is the gate. Joe, against his better judgment, agrees. They use Matt again. Robert Florence Sr., the bank's owner, has his suspicions, but sells anyway. Matt buys the Mainland Bank on their behalf, and Bernard immediately gets to work approving loans for black families who've been refused for years. For a while, it works exactly as planned. Then Florence Jr. starts watching. He tracks the loan records, follows Matt, discovers Bernard and Joe. He shows up with a letter from the U.S. Treasury Secretary and tells them a federal inspection is coming in 30 days. A threat that clearly means one thing. Someone has been engineering this from the start and wants them gone. Matt suggests they buy a second bank, the Bank of Marlin, and transfer the problematic loans there to buy themselves time. Bernard agrees reluctantly and allows Matt to run it, with Eunice keeping watch. But Matt, eager and overconfident, skips protocols. He uses a lawyer recommended by Florence Jr. without questioning why. Through that lawyer, Florence sneaks fraudulent loans into the books. By the time Bernard arrives disguised as a janitor to monitor a federal examination, it is too late. The examiner finds the irregularities. Mainland's license is revoked on the spot. The FBI arrests Bernard and Joe as they walk out of the building. The case gets tangled in racial politics at the highest level. Senator McClellan offers Bernard a choice. Take an immunity deal, confirm Matt's testimony, and walk free. Or say what he actually thinks and go to prison. Bernard chooses the Senate floor. He does not confirm the testimony. He does not take the deal. He stands up and says the things he's been carrying for 30 years about discrimination, about a system designed to keep black Americans locked out of wealth, about what it cost him and what it cost every family he tried to help. Both Bernard and Joe are sentenced to federal prison. Their fortunes are decimated. Florence Jr. purchases Mainland Bank for pennies. Matt Steiner is never charged with a single crime. When they get out, Eunice cannot understand why both men seem almost at peace. They've lost everything. It turns out they haven't. The night before Matt testified, he called Bernard. He told him about the senator's deal. He apologized, and Bernard, still thinking 10 moves ahead, asked him one favor. Before the government could seize their assets, certain properties were moved. Bernard and Joe walk out of prison and into 2 mansions sitting next to each other in the Bahamas. The little boy from Texas who sat outside a bank writing in a notebook didn't just beat the system, he outlasted it. If you enjoyed this recap of The Banker, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and drop a like to support the channel. Let me know in the comments, did Bernard make the right call speaking out at the Senate, or should he have taken the deal? We'll see you in the next one.